Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll continue with the frame part. We pretty much could develop this part with just 2 or 3 different features. And what we'll do is we'll start with the top plane here. We'll create a sketch, basing everything on the origin there. We'll go ahead and set up some center lines so that we can establish the square base. I'm not going to use any kind of relations here other than coincidence with the center lines here, just using them for reference, and just sketching a basic rectangle. Okay, then we'll use our smart dimensions. We've got the back here at 120, and we have our sides here at 110. Now again, you can see it's not aligned just yet, right? And what we could do here to align it, I'm going to dimension again from the side to the center line. Okay, and this is where you could use equations just to make this a little bit easier for you, right? Or you could just simply make this half the width, right? But if you think about this, if your part is changing, you might want to use equations just to ensure accuracy. And again, one way that we could look at this, let's get out of the smart dimension here, is if you're going to use view dimension names, you can see what they are. Again, if I double click on D3, I can use the equal sign here, and then simply select the dimension, and then use the math expression divide by 2. That should center it. I'll do the same thing with another dimension that I create here, and again, this is to align it vertically. So I'll use one edge here to the horizontal construction line there, and here I'll use equal, and I'll use this dimension divide by 2. Okay, and again, you could just do the simple math there to center it, to keep the design intent, the symmetry going. And now what we'll do is we'll switch over to features, and I'll use extrude. This time I'm going to extrude going down, okay, so that the origin's on the very top face. And this thickness appears to be, alright, so we're going to do a total depth here of 0.2. Also, if I go back to that sketch, I'll go ahead and put in that circle for the hole that goes through, which is a diameter of 0.30. So again, I'll use the origin there and use my smart dimension to make that 0.30. Okay, now again, as a closed region within a closed region, that's automatically going to produce that hole right there. Now, as we continue, we're going to use a mirror feature based on the one side that we create. And again, if you take a look at your standard planes here, you can see here's the right plane. We have 2 choices here. We can either offset another plane or simply use the face as a sketch plane for the side there that we're going to create. Either way would work, and it would move along even as the base changes. So what I'll do here is simply select the face and create a new sketch. And what we're going to do here is we're going to show that side, we've got a radius and a hole at some distance. And this is the dimension that we're going to be tracking. We're going to go ahead and use the default dimensions first to create the base or the default configuration of each part. So if you look at your design table, okay, we got a total height of 150 to start with. And we have a simple radius there that is, so a couple ways that we could approach this would be to either sketch our sides here, or because we're in a new sketch, I can control click each of these edges, all right, and using convert entities be able to project new lines into this sketch. Now that'll help because, again, as the base changes, we'll also have changes to the sides of these sketches. The other thing we want to look at here, if I go into a perpendicular view here, is to draft our center line from the origin, make it vertical, and then again set up our radius here. Okay, we can set up both the circle for the whole radius and then the diameter as well. Now, if I establish the radius here first, right, you can see how I can align it just by projection. And if you look at the smart dimension that I have here, you can see that it's 110. It's equal to the base width there. And what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and extend our lines and then use trim. So that center is also going to be the center for the hole, and then we'll be able to use a smart dimension to establish its overall height. So I'll go ahead and put that circle that represents the hole right on the center of the previous radius. We'll use a smart dimension for the hole, which is going to be 0.30. Okay. Now it's the position of both that hole and the radius that we're trying to control. Okay. So if I start from the top face here, come down to our center here, you can see this is what we have so far as a sketch. But if you look at the design table, we've got a default height of 150. Right? You'll notice, because we haven't actually set the coincidence or set any kind of relationship for that second radius, right? You can see how what happens here is it gets pulled out, the dimension wasn't even set, and what we could do here is we can use tangency. We can create some relations between this arc and the two sides to make sure that we keep a radius centered on the center line. So if I select the radius and select the edge here, I can make that tangent, and now you can see we have the right representation. You could test this if we double click here and just use the dynamic dimension wheel. You can see it's behaving properly now. Alright, we'll set it back to 150. So all we have here is just the profile. So what we'll want to do now is create the extrusion, and again what we'll do is we'll use extrude, but we'll use a contour. Okay, and you'll notice too, what you want to do is make sure we have the merge result checkbox. Okay, we have a default of 0.12. I'm going to go ahead and select both sides here. You'll notice the direction. We're going to reverse the direction. Okay, we have merge results. Confirm everything else. Click OK, and that should be one feature. And now to produce the other one, here's what we'll do. This is the feature that we want to mirror, and we're going to use the right plane. So control click the right plane and the Boss Extrude 2 feature, and then what we could do is use mirror. So the way that we set this up is going to enable us now, later on when we use the design table, to simply edit. If we look at the sketch one more time, is simply to track this dimension here. And as we track and edit this dimension, it's going to affect the feature, but also the other mirrored feature as well. Okay? Now, pay attention to this. This is called D2 at Sketch 2. One way that we could actually use this better in our design table is to actually rename it. So if I select it here, in the properties over here, we can rename this H. Rename it H, and it's going to be recognized as H at Sketch 2. All right? I'll close the sketch and you'll see the model update. So that's the frame. Let's go ahead and we'll do also the wheel.